Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole and today I want to go over one of the appointments that maybe you haven't put a lot of thought into. I know I certainly didn't. We get really caught up with the design center and wanting all of that excitement about what the home is going to look like, and we tend to forget about one of the important pieces, which is your electrical design day. Now typically this will happen on the same day as your design center appointment. Usually it's about right beforehand, so you'll go there first. But again, we get really excited about that design center, maybe overlook a couple of things that we really do want to think about. If you're building a home or if this is something you're interested in, go ahead, give this video a like, subscribe. Let's get going. Now this appointment will generally be in two different parts. You'll have your low voltage and your high voltage. They're done separately because they are different companies entirely, but you'll also get two different sheets with your entire home layout and the positioning of whatever it is you're going over. Now one of these is going to be your typical light switches, outlets, pre-wires, all of that, while the other will be a little bit more about your home security system, any type of media or sound system inputs, TV, internet, all of that. So this will be broken up into three parts. One of those is going to be before you go. One is what to consider at your appointment. And the third one is kind of just general advice, things that you probably think about that maybe are overlooked. So that first piece, before you go, really think about each and every room individually, how it's going to be laid out, and kind of what the room function is. So I feel like over the course of a couple of these videos, we've talked a lot about learning the function of the room. You really need to think that through before we go into the lighting sources. So you definitely don't want to underlight an area. You can overlight, it's a little bit, I say trickier, but it's something that can definitely be overdone. And you want to think about where you do want that lighting, what kind of natural lighting is going to be in that room, kind of which direction does that room face. And again, the kind of activity, is this something that you need well lit, like your kitchen, or are you going to be working in a garage space that needs to be well lit? These are the kind of things you want to think about before going into adding or maybe taking out any of those light sources. While you're thinking about those rooms, also look at about what you think the layout's going to be. Where is your furniture going to go? Where do you need those outlets? Where do you want your light switches if that's something you want to kind of think through and switch around? Is there anywhere that needs to be hidden or more visible for those outlets? These are the kind of things, again, you don't have to have everything laid out in great detail, but if you know about where your nightstands are going to go, where your couch is going to go, these things will help if you want a floor lamp later. You want to make sure that you have access to what you need. Last thing to do is really go to your model if you can and walk around, take note of where the lights are, take note of where the light switch is, where the outlets, all of that. And again, visualize where you think things will go. Look at how they have it set up, see if it makes sense to you. Just go through, see what you would change, what you wish they would have done instead. That way you'll have a lot more information going into your appointment about where things are generally located and how you want to move those around. So when you finally do sit down for that appointment, there are a couple of things that you do want to consider. They'll lay out the list in front of you with all the prices for everything. They'll go through, again, your floor plan, and they have little stickers they can put to make sure that we agree on the location of everything. But these are the things that, again, might be a little more overlooked, maybe something you don't think about right away. And we really want to get these locked in as soon as possible. You can always switch them later, but then you're cutting into walls. You have to know, where your wirings are to begin with. It gets a lot more expensive later on. So these are some things that you can think about right away. It's going to just be a little bit more helpful for you. Nowadays, homes typically don't have any, lack of outlets, but you really want to think about the placement of them and where you might want some extras. Do you want them inside any drawers? So some kind of hidden compartments. Do you want them in your pantry? Are you doing, all of your small appliances out of sight of the kitchen? Do you have any other type of under drawer space that you might need an outlet? These kind of hidden ways that can help clear off your countertops, keep things a little bit more hidden, but also keep things very convenient for you. Are you thinking about putting in a bidet? So a lot of these bidet attachments can be just, with the cold water, but they have these really fancy ones with water temperature control, with, air vents and all of that. Maybe you want an outlet right by your toilet seat, so things like that to keep in mind. Do you want to hide some of those outlets in your kitchen, beneath the cabinetry? Are you a gardener? Do you work a lot outside with tools and you might need a lot more access to your outdoor outlets? Do you have a cordless vacuum? Maybe you want to make sure there's an outlet inside a closet somewhere so you can hang that up kind of out of the way. Again, just think through all of these smaller items that are just in your day-to-day life that maybe aren't going to come equipped necessarily right off the bat. Now your home will come equipped with some pot lights, some can lights, whatever you want to call them, and they are going to be helpful for just making sure you do have some general light in your space. You can always add more, you can take them away as well. But again, think through the lighting. Remember, you don't just want your overhead lighting, you do want to hopefully add sconces, floor lamps, table lamps, accent lighting, task lighting, all of that. So you do have a couple other things to keep in mind. But again, maybe you do want to add some. Just be careful not to go overboard. Sometimes a ceiling can look a little bit more like Swiss cheese, which is not exactly that elevated and classy look we're going for here. Speaking of those other light sources, do you want to hang a chandelier or a pendant light or a couple of pendant lights, things over your kitchen island, your dining room table, your family room? All of these probably aren't going to come standard, so you do want to make sure that you plot out what kind of lighting fixtures you are looking for. Now, maybe that's also wall sconces. If you don't want a table lamp on your nightstands, maybe you do love wall sconces. This is something I definitely wish I had thought about a little bit earlier. And you want to make sure that those can be wired if you can. Obviously, they do make some that you can plug in. But then again, you have to make sure the outlets are appropriately placed as well there. So just, again, things to think about and think through before you go. If you're big into art or you're thinking about going in that direction, things like picture lights, some of them are hardwired, or again, some of them you do need an outlet. They actually have some really cool battery powered ones as well. So there are definitely a lot of options. And I think that especially for things like picture lights or under cabinet lighting, we are seeing a little bit more of either USB rechargeable or battery powered. So if you don't think of everything at the beginning, don't worry about it. There are always ways to kind of work around. But if that's something you know is going to be important for you, it might be worth looking into before you get the house built. If you're doing any type of built-in, maybe that's in a closet, maybe that's some type of library style bookshelf, you might want to think about lighting there too. Think through the placement of your security system if that's something you're getting, or if you're doing any type of home automation, that's also something you want to think about where those panels are going to live. You typically want them a little bit more out of the way, but not something that's hidden completely. You don't want to make it difficult for you to access. But again, out of line of sight, especially that security system, you want to make sure that somebody, peeking in through your windows can't see that you have that. It's just an extra layer of protection for you there. But these are the things you want to start thinking about for where it's going to be the most useful for you. Are you the type of person who likes a central vacuum? So this is not something that I am too familiar with. I know what it is. I've never actually seen one in person. It's not something I grew up with. I feel like there's kind of two camps, people who this is an absolute must-have, and other people who are like, there's a vacuum in my wall, that's weird. So this is, again, something you want to think about if that is something that you are interested in. If it's something you feel like is a must, then go through the locations where you think it's going to be the most natural, the most useful, and plot out those central vacuum lines too. You can also start thinking about different wiring types that you want hidden. So we have something I believe is called a future proof for the TV, basically a tunnel that goes from the TV access point all the way through to an outlet somewhere else, where you can kind of snake that cable behind the wall to kind of clean up that view of the television so you don't have your cords hanging down. If that's something you know is a look you're going for, again, you can always do these things later, but it gets a little bit more complicated, more tricky, and probably more expensive. Obviously, with anything, looking at the cost now versus later can be helpful with making that decision, but something definitely to think about. Other types of pre-wires are also good to think about now. So we know that we need that whole house generator. That's not something we purchase through the builder themselves, but it's definitely something that we do need for our home. So having something like that, maybe your home doesn't need one, but it's something that's a kind of a want or a good to have. Think that through. Same thing with solar panels. If you know maybe you're not buying them right now, but you are thinking about that for the future. Again, any of these things that are pretty expensive to get corrected later on, just think about pre-wiring them now, even if you're not doing it right as you move in. Now, once you are done with that appointment, you'll have, again, all of that paperwork, you'll have everything totaled up, and you do have a little bit of time to review everything and then get back to them, typically a couple week period before all of that is locked in. So I would suggest when you get home, maybe decompress for a little bit, but make sure you pull that out, go back over everything, go back over your plans for the home, see if there's anything else you missed, look at your pricing sheet, see if there's anything you need to add or subtract. This is that time to really digest and go back to everything and make sure that it is exactly what you're looking for. So now we're moving into that third section, just kind of other general advice. First thing I would say is really consider ceiling fan pre-wires for all of your bedrooms and probably your common areas, whether that's your family room, your dining room, other areas like that where people, not just your family, might be gathering. Now personally, and I've said it before, I'm not a big fan of ceiling fans, even though I have had my fair share in the past. But here's the thing, that at least gives you the option. You can always hang a chandelier or a pendant light or something like that from a ceiling fan pre-wire. You just keep those wires capped and tucked up inside. But if you don't have it and you're only planning for that chandelier, and either you go to sell the home, or maybe you realize that you really did want, a little bit more air circulation, you get hot a little bit too easily, it's much more difficult than to go the other way. So having those pre-wires, again, not only for yourself for now, but also for resale value in the future, is really going to be helpful because everybody's a little bit different. And again, it's easier to not use it and have it than want it and have to get it wired later. Home automation is something we're going to continue to see. Anything that you can control, from an app, from your phone, these are things that are going to make life a lot easier and we'll continue to see from here on out. Automate what you can, and obviously you need to go in with a budget, and having, lighting is going to be a little bit more important right from the beginning. But these are things you want to think about. How much do you want to be able to control from your phone, from a control panel, something along those lines, just something to think about. Now, when you're looking at your lighting, where everything's going to be going, there's a couple of things that you want to make sure you don't have or maybe need to move. One of those is going to be in the bathroom. You do want to make sure that your light is not coming directly from overhead. You'll want it either over the mirror or to the sides if you're doing sconces. Just keep in mind a light directly over your head as you're trying to, say, do your hair, do your makeup, brush your teeth, anything like that. It's going to cast a lot of shadows and make that mirror very difficult to use. So you want to make sure that somewhere where you're using that light for a very specific task, it's not going to create unnecessary shadows for you. Along those same lines, think about your lights in your kitchen. So right now, if I look over to this wonderful apartment kitchen, the lighting is set up directly in the middle. So we have cabinetry to either side and a light directly centered. Now what that does is, it looks like it provides a lot of light until you go to lean over to use the counter space in any way. That light is now behind us, meaning that we create a shadow over anything we're trying to do in the counter space. I don't know who thought this was a great idea or why they decided on this type of lighting structure. It's horrendous. Definitely, it defeats the purpose of being able to use the lighting in your space. So anywhere where you have a very specific task you're trying to get accomplished, make sure you're thinking through lighting, spacing, and thinking through shadows. We talked a little bit about budget, so we know that there are things we need right now, but we also know there's a couple of things we might want for the future. So maybe you're thinking of finishing the basement later. Maybe it's going to be, some type of rec room. Maybe it will be a bedroom. Maybe you want this really nice outdoor space and you want to do an outdoor kitchen. You might want to pre-wire things for that right now. So getting it all put in right away maybe won't be the most cost effective, especially if you know it's going to be years until that's actually going to be used. But again, think through the future, think through what you definitely want it to be used for eventually, and start planning for that now. Anywhere whether you can get things done in advance is going to be a little bit cheaper than having to rip the walls out later. You might also want to talk to them about being able to have different light switches for different items. So I think for right now, and I'm not completely sure, but probably, when we flip on a light switch and we have our recessed lights and our pendant lights or chandeliers, it's probably going to control all of them at the same time, meaning we don't have as much access to that kind of mood lighting or just differences in lighting than maybe we would want. So if you can get them to separate, you know, your pot lights or your can lights from your chandeliers, from your pendants, the same way you would be able to flip on a light switch for a ceiling fan versus having the fan on or off, that might be really helpful for you. Having that control over your lighting is really going to help. Again, maybe it needs to be a little more dim. Maybe you want everything on. Maybe you're trying to create a certain mood or a certain atmosphere. It's just not an option that you might have automatically. So just be sure to talk through with your builder. Speaking of all of that, you do want to think about dimmers as well. Now I look back through all my paperwork and I don't believe that was anywhere on, you know, through this appointment, but think that through as well. Again, dimmers are going to be very, very useful later on. So maybe it's something you have to do afterward, but anything, again, that you can do right away, get it done before you move in, is going to be great. Now, unfortunately, it's really hard to think through absolutely everything. You're probably going to get in there at some point and think, I wish I had thought of X, Y, and Z, or you get to a point where something you just never would have thought of that you need to go back through and edit later on. It's going to be so helpful to have pictures before your drywall goes up. So we've definitely talked about this one before, but you want to document absolutely everything that you can. If you're able to walk through yourself, again, pictures, video, get everything that you need, bring a tape measure, figure out where those really important pieces for your electrical system are going to be. And if you can't make it there yourself, ask your builder, make sure that you have something that's going to show you where all of this is behind your wall that you're not going to be able to see once that drywall goes up. So that is everything for this week. If there is anything you think I missed, go ahead, let me know below. Again, I'm really hoping that this is going to be helpful for anybody, you know, in the building process, looking to build a home. And these are things that I really wish I had thought of beforehand. So hopefully you did find this helpful. If you did, go ahead and give this video a like. Again, hope you will stick around. Otherwise, can't wait to see you in the next video. Until next time, bye.